Hi everyone, welcome to today's webcast around simplified architectures and cost savings with Nutanix and Insight. I'm Yelena Anger, Marketing Manager here at Insight, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we start, wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. The webcast console you're looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have open. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit. All questions from this webcast will be captured and the presenter will address them at the end of the session. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon below the presentation window. The help guide covers common tech issues. And now I'd like to turn this over to Larry Gross, Insight's Senior Cloud and Data Center Solution Architect. Larry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time today. So before we get started, and the flow today will be, first we'll talk about who is Insight, but most important, why we're very excited about today's hyperconverged technology and definitely our partnership with Nutanix. And then we'll go into where we see and how we understand how Nutanix is absolutely addressing a lot of the healthcare needs. But before we do so, let me have Cheryl introduce herself, and then we'll dive in.
Thanks, Larry. This is Cheryl Rodenfels. I'm the CTO of Healthcare for Nutanix. We've been partnering with Insight with a lot of customers, working on good solutions that make healthcare stronger and actually save them money. And my background, I'm a former CIO and CTO for healthcare organizations, and I really, really appreciate everyone's time and attention today.
Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl. So let me dive into, why Insight and why definitely Nutanix hyperconverged technology. So at Insight, for those, many of those know the new Insight today, but I'll kind of talk about who we are, but also more important, we're hyperconverged, and Nutanix solution actually fits into every one of our focus silos, if you will. So Insight was built off of supply chain optimization. That's a group that's been helping customers procure their products, meet their demands for products, for their growth and their technology shift, if you will. Today, we see that the hyperconverged technology fits into exactly how we were set up to do business. As customers look to Insight's supply chain optimization group and their buy desk solutions to actually be able to, hey, we don't want to have to buy products in advance. We want to be able to respond quickly to demands and our growth. Well, hyperconverged technology actually fits into that, right? So we don't have to be proactive and try to think down the road we need to buy. We can actually buy the technology of compute, networking, and storage that fits our demand today. As we see that the built-in analytics actually provides us insight that, hey, we're going to need additional compute, additional networking, or additional storage down the road, and buy based on demand. Our supply chain optimization business meets that perfectly, aligns with that perfectly. So it just fits in nicely. Nextly, connect the workforce. That's the focus group at Insight that does focus on our workforce, our customers' workforce. With that said, we see the hyperconverged technology actually enhances the way that customers are already deploying legacy VMware environments and Citrix environments in today's workplace environments, right? But also, we find that solutions like Nutanix actually saw that, understood that, and actually worked with our cloud partners to actually have these new virtual workloads environments pre-set up for them. We have customers that all of a sudden, because of the change with the virus and the remote workforce, went from on-site to remote overnight. The ability to fire up workloads and meet that demand quickly was supplied by partners like Nutanix. Thirdly, and the group I'm part of, Cloud and Data Center Transformation, we do focus on the way customers are addressing virtual workloads, native cloud workloads, a new term, and services technology, right? So our group does focus on that data center and that transformation into legacy ways of doing it and new ways of doing it. And we find that the solutions of hyperconverged not only allows us to help them optimize down by increasing proficiency and performance, but allows us to also adapt cloud. And I'll get more into that in some upcoming slides. And then Digital Innovation Group, that's our group that really does focus on helping customers reinvent or refresh their applications, bring in applications that include intelligence and and IoT and AI and machine learning, right? Well, Nutanix is one of those partners that the reference architecture to actually fit into that has already been pre-certified, if you will. So it allows us to adapt to the newer technology, not always in the cloud at first. Some customers like to do it on-premise first, but allows us to adopt that way and then go down to the cloud later on. More information around all these groups I'll supply something down the road, but I hope that helps. Nextly, when we get into our cloud and data center transformation business, we do start off by trying to understand the workloads, the business drivers, right? The technology and the platforms required versus trying to guess. So we use our consultative services, our professional services, even after we're done, our managed services and supporting services to support our customers, right? Well, besides what we look to do for our customers, we've heard from CIOs the outcomes requires are adopting business agility. Hey, we've been behind in our IT transformation. How can you at Insight and today's technology help us get ahead of our IT transformation requirements? And by the way, all our customers have told us, hey, we really do want to raise operational efficiencies while lowering operational costs in doing so, right? And lastly, end user or customer experience. That's the most important reason. That's why we all do it. Well, with all that said, we find that the solutions from Nutanix and the hyperconverged solutions, or I'll call it the cloud-ready solutions, actually help us meet those requirements. Next thing, let me get into some more specifics to what we see at Insight, why hyperconverged and why partnerships like Nutanix. We're hearing from our healthcare customers, especially, think about with the COVID virus and what they did, right? And all the scanning and digital images that all of a sudden went from a good demand to an overwhelming demand. So having solutions that could actually be, number one, pre-certified. You have to be certified with the PAC vendors and the solution vendors that meet the requirement, having those to meet that, but also could quickly come on premise or quickly be built in the cloud to be able to scale up to meet the demand. That, hey, we could have this brought in and be up and running within hours versus within weeks. And by the way, is it adaptable to cloud? So as we go to have a retention policy or archive policy, can we do it in a hybrid approach that the current data is on premise, the retention long-term data is over in the cloud, and can we have that being certified, right? Also, can we have it built in that as we do this is the understanding of how to do it with backup and DR or automatically inclusive, or those separate focuses and separate solutions have to bring in. So we find that, especially with Nutanix, absolutely helps us meet that. Let's talk about simplifying NHA. I mentioned about how it's important for our customers, especially with increased demand. we understand what we're all going through, that everybody's a bit overwhelmed, overworked, overstretched, that the solutions are looking for that, boy, can we deploy these quickly and effectively? Can we have, everybody says it have a simplified management, but truly this is a simplified management. Can I have a web-based console, so whether I have the workloads on premise or in the cloud, and can those tools that are single pane be able to tell us proactively that down the road when we're going to get in trouble or what needs to be changed, right? Can the tools automatically give us recommendations for tuning the environment? Can they tell us, okay, boy, we're going to hit a wall here with these workloads, but can it be more specifics that it's going to need more compute, more networking, and more storage, right, that we find with Nutanix? And really, very important in today's world, security. I know we just saw in the news that different people environments just got hacked, that by simplifying the plane that all this works on, can that also harden it simpler, right? Can we mitigate attacks with the simplified solution? And the answer is yes. We found by bringing the compute networking storage with a single web console and bringing it all together in a single plane, actually helps us simplify and secure it as well. And lastly, customers are all looking to our customers adapt cloud, right? Now, not necessarily all in. Some people want to have some workloads on premise because it makes sense. Some workloads better in the cloud. How can we enable the solution that what we put on site is actually cloud ready, so we do move to cloud, or we want to have workloads go back and forth? With today's technology, it's not a matter that, hey, we want to decide that we want to move to cloud and now we're going to migrate it or lift and shift it to cloud. but can we actually have the cloud set up as an extension of ours, or we call a stretch cluster, right? Can we have the cloud look like it's part of our on-premise workloads and cluster, if you will, so we could seamlessly move workloads back and forth or where required, or have the system do it for us, right? So we find that solutions like Nutanix not only makes it easy for us to build on-premise, cloud-ready architecture, but also bring in adapt cloud, also have the cloud automatically part of the workload, so workloads are automatically moved back and forth, and also give the customer ease of doing so. I hope that helps there. Next thing I was told, talk a little further about our skills and capabilities. So in our cloud and transformation services, our skills do allow us to understand workloads from high-end big data workloads to standard Windows workloads, and be able to design for today's outcomes required. We do have services that once we understand and design around, we do help customers in that migration plan on what gets moved and when and why and how, so we just don't walk away. And very important, and again, no fault to a lot of customers, but as today's world changed, whether it was in the cloud or not, but the security policies and requirements weren't always up to the latest and greatest. But what our services, our goal before going to cloud is make sure that it's cloud ready for security as well and management. We find out that the security office of most customers enjoy that we automatically include that. And then again, as we move to the cloud, our goal is to actually simplify and enhance our customers' capability of managing their requirements. So we do look at how to automate the processes, simplify the processes, and keep the requests coming forward as if customers want to have that single portal, self-service portal. So when their customers request additional workload demand or growth, their ability to adapt to that is now quicker and more efficient. And lastly, that, look, it's all great if you put it in the cloud, but, is our workforce, is our end user community, our customers that come in as an end user community to access our applications, is it enables to allow them to have that experience required? And that's where it always ends with, hey, we've got to make sure that whoever's accessing this information, from customers to internal employees, that their experience is not equal, but has to be better than it was before. So we enjoy that not only we have the skills, but we understand the required outcomes and work with our customers in doing so. So with that said, I hope that helps. I'm going to hand off to Cheryl now to get into a little deeper on how Nutanix is addressing healthcare needs. Cheryl?
Thanks, Larry. What I really appreciate about Insight and about your team, Larry, is you do offer a lot of solutions. And I think that's what healthcare customers are looking for. They're looking for solutions. And one of the things we contribute is the technology behind the solutions. So just to reiterate and talk about what the healthcare customers need, especially as they find themselves moving into really continued times of uncertainty, especially with funding and growth or shrinkage in a lot of cases. Their basic needs are they need a reliable, flexible, and affordable infrastructure. They're not getting more money to work with. They're actually getting less. The other thing is that they've collected a bunch of equipment and a bunch of applications throughout their history. And, we run into organizations that have gotten super complicated because they have applications that are still running on lesser versions of Windows, all the way up to things right now that are built in the cloud. And through each of these things, they all require maintenance, and they require contracts, and they have different attributes that you have to manage. They also need hardened and trusted security. Again, with the complexity, each one of these solutions or infrastructure components has its own security, so that's gotten complicated. Comprehensive and consolidated management, got to make it easy. They want dashboards. They want to be able to make decisions quickly, as opposed to let me get onto this console and to that console and to the next console. There's that. Again, let's talk about these shrinking budgets. One of the first things that gets cut is training money. So they want the ability to train their support staff, and they want to be able to do it quickly. They can't send people out for weeks or months at a time to get trained. Biggest thing for them is outstanding application performance. You're not going to move to a technology that's going to make things worse. They probably already get enough complaints about some of the things that they run. So performance has to be there. And then whether it's adopting cloud technology or cloud processes, really the goal is to move at the speed of the cloud. I need to be able to provision quickly. I need to be able to adjust the application and the infrastructure to the size that I need, because not all applications are created equal. I also need to be able to spin up users, as fast as they come or for as long as they're there. So when we're looking at what do healthcare customers need, it's really important to keep in mind their set of requirements. So we're going to go just through a reminder of what HCI is, and when we talk in healthcare, because they have enough acronyms of their own, we spell out hyperconverged infrastructure. We don't want to add any more complexity to the healthcare environment, but really just as a reminder, what Nutanix has done is we've taken that hardware stack that was servers and storage and network and that virtualization application layer, and we've turned it into software, and that software runs on their platform of choice. Okay, nobody's going to trust a company that isn't going to be around tomorrow, so we always like to talk about where Nutanix is and how we are in the market. As you can see, we give a pretty good snapshot that shows as we started out in hardware, we've become software, as a lot of good companies have, transitioned to a software subscription model. Our financials are strong year over year. We're still the leader in Gartner and Forrester. As an entrepreneurial company too, we continue to develop and invent products that work, as you can see by our patents. All the rest of the stats are awesome. You can see our customers growing year over year. But if you look at the right, the world-class Net Promoter Score, we continue to be in 90 to 90 plus range for customer satisfaction. And I think a lot of the reason is we do spend so much time on our engineering and on our architecture and on our integration that when customers call us, we help them figure out what's going on all the way until the problem's resolved. And whether it is, we find out that the problem is with Nutanix software or somebody's hardware, whatever, we really help navigate that for them. That keeps us in those 90s. Okay, again, if you're not familiar with the Nutanix platform, this is our stack, and what we're showing is that this platform works in both the private cloud and in integrating with the public cloud, plus all of the features that we've added over time. We talked with healthcare about modernizing their infrastructure. We've talked about making sure the environment is secure, consolidating the data, automating operations, and ensuring business continuity. This is how our platform continues to grow and continues to offer all of the solutions that they require today. As Larry said, they have a rich and diverse partner ecosystem, as do we. We've spent a lot of time with the application vendors, making sure that the application works optimally on the Nutanix platform. Again, there aren't a lot of extra people in healthcare IT organizations, and they're not spending a lot of their time doing research and development. We do that for them. We make sure that the applications run, and if there's certification required, we work with the vendors to get that certification. Just as on the manufacturer side, we make sure that our platform and the applications run on whichever hardware they're choosing. And then, of course, we work with partners like Insight to make sure that we get the solution to the customer as they need it. Okay, so one of the things that customers were familiar with us for is our delivery of VDI. And how that translates into healthcare is we've worked very hard with all of those application vendors to deliver the application to the point of care. That means whether it's through Citrix or VMware, however they need to have the application rendered, and whether it's on a thin client, a thick client, a mobile device, we make sure that we can deliver it reliably with minimal amount of latency, and that we can scale it for whatever their changing needs are. The next thing that we worked on was working on the core clinical applications. We work on the reporting applications, population health, the operational databases, and of course the master patient index, which is the key to all of their operations. We didn't stop there. We work with all of the imaging vendors to deliver PACS solutions. One of the things about PACS, as you remember, they used to be delivered as a black box, dropped off on the computer room floor. The network team was told to plug in some network connections, and next thing you know, there was this equipment that nobody could get at, nobody could manage. We've given customers the freedom to put their PACS vendor of choice on our platform. The same thing with document management systems. These are two of the type of systems that really generate growth for storage as well as capacity as well as data center sprawl. So other systems that we've integrated and worked with on behalf of the customers include things like Imprivata and any of the other extensions. Accessing the systems at the hospital is important, but as everyone knows, nobody wants to log on 10 times in order to get the applications they need. So we work with vendors like Imprivata for tap and go, as well as some other good advanced features. IGEL, whatever it takes for them to deliver customer satisfaction, that's what we work on. And then when we talk about this, all of the Nutanix features, security, availability, our compute services, our storage and object services, data protection, backup, and our network virtualization, all of these products take advantage of the features in the Nutanix platform. One of the things we talk about too is, that's great, you've got the clinical side covered, but do I have to do something different for my business applications? Well, absolutely not, right? Nutanix has spent a lot of time not only in healthcare, but across other business types, working on those applications that run the core business, especially for some of their big systems, like for their ERP systems or their CRM systems, SAP HANA, the larger databases, all the Microsoft databases. We've tested those. We've run them at scale for extremely large healthcare, as well as retail and government customers. Virtualization, of course, that's one of the best features of Nutanix. But I'll tell you, when hospitals are looking at remote offices, and they don't necessarily call them remote or branch offices, but they're opening a clinic or they're acquiring a physician office, they have to get solutions out there quickly, and they usually have to send a pit crew of people. And that's one of the things, by putting a software-delivered solution, we can cover their compute needs at the remote office. We can cover their voice over IP needs. We can cover Active Directory, whatever they need to put out there. You can do it through a set of nodes, and you don't have to have the pit crew, and you can manage it remotely. In addition, we always talk about our AI and ML capabilities, especially when it comes to virtual GPUs, what that helps healthcare organizations with. Because imaging is so important, and not only the expensive imaging stations, but if a physician has to look at an image, they need a diagnostic quality display. Some of the great capabilities behind our virtual GPU is allowing regular monitors to become diagnostic quality because we've enabled them with virtual GPU. Of course, security products, everybody is running, their products where they need to run them, but this also helps not only manage their environment, but it also helps them with where their data is traversing the network. We also work on all the big data products, and then back to end user computing, as we discussed earlier. Okay, Larry, I think we're going to walk through some customer success stories, and I think this is important to go through because it's one thing to say that, hey, Insight and hey, Nutanix, this is great that you talk about these things. Can you prove that you've actually done them? And I think that's really where we come together to say, yeah, we have. And we deliver results, and we deliver really good solutions, and ultimately happy customers. Let's talk about one of the large university health systems that we've approached and that has been a customer now. One of the things that they've done, they're in the final phases of building their enterprise or on-premise cloud, and their goal was to modernize their existing technology, and going back to those earlier requirements we talked about, they needed it to be stable, they needed to be reliable, and they had to free up the time so that they could actually help their academic medical center become innovative, because they need to spend more time on research and cures than they did on keeping the network and the infrastructure up and running. So what they did is they started out in a very phased approach, and as they started to replace their old architecture, they rolled out Nutanix across the board for every single component that they could possibly use us on. Now what they find is they really do provide all of those satisfying experiences to the customer. They can provision in minutes. They can provision for any application with the right amount of infrastructure. They don't over-provision like they used to with t-shirt-sized boxes. And really, they've saved about 45% of their investment over the 5-year period that they've been using Nutanix. And that's pretty exciting. There's another large system that we work with, and they've delivered desktop as a service for a cloud offering. And what we're finding with that, that's our Xi-Frame product. They've been able to spin up remote users and actually separate users quickly so that they were not ready for all of the work at home, and not everybody needed the same access. So they were really able to quickly move and get users available really within a couple of days. They had to develop the requirements first, and they had to work through their provisioning process on desktop as a service. But that was really a good example of, hey, I've got to do something a little different. I wasn't quite comfortable with it before, but I certainly am now. Just a couple other examples. It's not only for the large systems. Let's talk about those medium and small size systems. One of the small systems we worked with, they needed an opioid control situation with one of their pharmacy systems. And this is where we worked with Imprivata on a tap and go tracking opportunity, because the way that they previously tracked who got into the opioid drawers and were they really dispensed and all of that was very manual. It was almost spreadsheet manual. So taking one of those business processes and automating it through the tools they purchased through Nutanix it really relieved them, and it took the process out of the hands of nurses or clinical folks who had a million other things to do, like care for patients. And that automation allowed them to move more quickly, and it allowed them to meet the requirements of an October 1st implementation date. And then I would say for the small community-based health system and the other systems that we work with, one of the things that they're finding is as they go to upgrade some of their systems, they don't want it back on premise. And so they're really trying to do a software as a service first replacement strategy. And so what we've helped them with is with their Nutanix on-premise work, as well as figuring out how to put their applications either into a public cloud or even as a managed service, and not have the problem of having to manage all of those things differently. They wanted one management system, and they wanted it to be easy because, again, they didn't have staff, they didn't have all the skills that they needed to roll out all these different solutions. So for them, the best part of this was now they can manage everything, and they really have better insight into their environment. So those are some of the examples of how Nutanix and Insight are working with our customers. Larry, anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, so thank you, Cheryl. That was awesome. I did want to add to it that when we talk about healthcare, we do have to mention the life science industry. So we've worked with healthcare providers for many years, and also life science, we find that PAC certified data requirements are very similar. I worked with a life science company that their request was to refresh their on-premise workloads, virtual workloads. When we assessed it, we came back with the recommendation of hyperconverged and actually Nutanix solution for their needs. As they said that they didn't want to adapt cloud, we kept that in mind and let them know that what we are building is cloud ready. Architecture on-premise, the workloads are designed to be cloud ready and cloud efficient. And when we say cloud efficient, we know how cloud partners have adapted cloud and didn't design their way, and the egress pipe costs actually hit them pretty hard. So once we were done with that, they were so pleased with the results. Their next demand was, okay, how can we start adapting cloud? Now for them, honestly, we started with the backup and DR piece, worked with Nutanix, and actually took with the Haiku product, we actually implemented a certified for their cliency and how the data had to be backed up per the requirement, and we worked out Haiku and put that in the cloud. And then also with Zyleap, we adapted the cloud that it's Nutanix-like workloads in the cloud that allows them to meet their DR requirements. So that was a good starting point. So I wanted to throw out that reference. That life cycle is part of our healthcare focus as well. So with that said, maybe we should get in some questions. I see that there are some questions, and if we could kind of find out what some of those are, and we'll kind of go through and answer those for you.
Yeah, I do see some questions in here. There are 3. So the first question is, so we work with a lot of small hospital organizations. Can you describe how we can afford this technology?
Hey, Cheryl, you want to start and I'll jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one of the things, we have a lot of small hospital reference customers because the way that Nutanix and Insight work is when we find a customer, we like to actually, land and expand, right? That's the phrase we use. But a lot of times, smaller hospitals don't have, extremely large budgets. So we find one workload for them or one application that they'd like to modernize, and we can price a solution and we can work with a solution that is in the tens of thousands of dollars as opposed to the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's really how a lot of our smaller customers start out. And then the second thing we do with them, both of our organizations have a really strong TCO ROI group. We work with them to show what this investment does for them over the long term, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever their the value of their purchase is, according to their accounting. We want to make sure that not only is it affordable and that they can pay as they grow, that also they understand compared to other solutions and compared to their budget and their investments, the value that they're going to see and the money that they're going to save.
Perfect. And let me add to that too. So I've got a smaller hospital in the Pacific Northeast that I work with that actually manages a bunch of even smaller hospitals. So we got involved, and they were hit with another technology refresh requirement to keep up with demand and their virtual workloads. When we got involved in the CIO and the executive leadership, it did voice that concern to us, voice the concern of cost and refresh and all the things that they find not only a task to their overloaded resources and supporting these healthcare systems, but also it was a continuous battle of cost, right? So with the Nutanix solution, that we did a discovery around their workloads and what would be the right sizing and right sizing. We found a lot of their resources were actually over allocated. There was just too much compute, networking, storage assigned versus what was really needed. We showed them the right sizing of it, brought in a Nutanix solution. So not only did they find out that it was more cost effective up front versus the blade servers they were looking at, the networking switches they were looking at, and the CN storage they were looking at, with some of the storage needing some file system as well. So they found it more cost effective that way, but they were pleased with the results of, hey, we now can manage this with fewer people, with fewer times, quote unquote from the CIO. Per my staff, the built-in management tools are like our built-in admin. It's already pre-watching and what we need to know, and it's giving us alerts if something is meeting a threshold we need to look into a little deeper. And it has that information we could drill down and find out what that really means. That this workload is actually step on this workload, and here's how to correct it, and giving us those answers. But they said it actually lowered our operational cost. They said it didn't just lower our costs up front, but they felt it really did lower the operational cost. So thank you, Cheryl. That was a good example. Next question.
Yeah, someone asked, the first thing that happens during our budget cuts, as we've seen with COVID-19, is that the training budget disappears. How would we train our teams to be proficient in this environment?
Yeah, go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay, sure, certainly. So one of the things about the Nutanix platform is that it is less complex, and it is software. So, a lot of the teams already know how to manage hardware. They've installed hardware, provisioned hardware for a long time. But with software, this is so easy and so intuitive. Our management platform, our Prism management platform, allows them to do a lot of pointing and clicking. Now they have to know a little bit of math and how to divide up the compute and the basic components behind storage and networking. But quite honestly, there are some online trainings that we provide that are pretty straightforward. We host boot camps that can last a couple of hours to a series. But a lot of our customers really feel comfortable and really feel trained within 2 or 3 sessions of a combination of online and boot camp and hands-on training. The second part of that is not only is it really a lot of self-serve training, we also work side by side with the customer from implementation, and when the platform is installed and everything is ready to go, we also assist them with the transition to production, where it's great that it got installed and it's great that everything's up and running and the system is perfect and ready to move. But the next thing is the first time they go to use it, we want to make sure that what they were trained on and how they understand everything works actually match up. So when they transition an application or they transition their VDI users, we work side by side, and in many cases, we train them by shadowing them after they've watched us walk through how to do the system administration. We sit behind and watch them, and that way they gain that confidence of actually being able to do the work themselves. So it's a very collaborative engagement, and between us and along with Insight, we make sure that we all have qualified people, we all bring our A game to the table, and we all are in it for the success of the customer.
Yeah, and let me add to that. So here's what we not only find ourselves, but we hear from customers. Yes, by the way, when we bring in Nutanix solutions, is it up and running within a few hours? Absolutely. Some cases within an hour, and that's just not a story that's real for the customers that experience the solution. But where the training is actually inclusive in the platform intelligence, I'll call it, that if I'm managing an Oracle workload, if I'm managing a VMware workload, I'm managing a file print workload. The ability to get in there to understand what's going on, the ability to get in there to show how the performance is, it's built in a platform. So honestly, where people were going through intensive training on previous solutions to understand that analytics and what was happening in their platform, to understand when they're going to hit the wall, they're comfortable understanding. The next thing is growth, changes, additions. Customers are pleasantly surprised there's not intensive training required once they know the Nutanix, and more additional Nutanix, what we call nodes of compute network storage, are required. You plug them in and they're automatically recognized. They're automatically given the alert, hey, would you like to take existing workloads and just stretch across the new environment, which Nutanix solution does automatically for you? Or would you like to make this a new cluster? And it hand walks the customer through, where in previous solutions there was extensive training just to learn how to do the additions and the growth as well. So I'll leave it at that. So great question, and always excited about talking about that answer.
And so there is one more question. Yeah. Our organization is moving away from owning infrastructure. How do you manage services work, and do you have different offerings?
Sure, you want to start, then I'll chime in that.
Yeah, so again, you know, as we work with customers, we work through Insight as our partner. First thing we work with the customer on is determining what do they want us to do, right? Because again, depending on size, depending on skills, depending on their roadmap, depending on, you know, just about everything, you know, every of their requirements, we want to find a solution that works for them. And again, everybody wants something a little different. So the first thing is we figure out what technology and what platform we provide based on whether it's VDI or big database applications or their voice applications, or, you know, whatever it is they want us to solve with them. And then the next thing we figure out, you know, are they able to handle this? Is this something they want to bring on? And then I'm going to send this one to Larry, because Insight has several services that they offer that really help them with what's the right size and what's the right fit for me.
Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about, so not only do we enjoy working with Nutanix to understand the upfront requirement and sizing, we do respect and understand that, okay, hey, we've got the Nutanix footprint, as simple it is. We want to be able to manage to that. By the way, we do have a SQL environment, or we have this other software that ties into it. We have other components to it. We have VMware. We have other components to it that we really do want a single source to go to. So we at Insight actually roll this into a service that we work closely, that we're responsible. You do a single phone call to us, and we're responsible to watch, analyze what's happening in Nutanix. If we decide it's a VMware issue, we can own that. Not only do we find that we're an extension of the customer's IT team, if you will, to help manage that and support that, but we find out we are lowering their costs in doing so. We're finding out by offering the solution and helping them manage the different components to it outside of what already Nutanix simplifies. Not only we're helping them to raise their operational efficiency while lowering that operational cost. So it's the upfront service and it's the post service that we enjoy bringing to our customers to bring the total solution together. So I believe that's the last of the questions, and if there's no more, we absolutely appreciate everybody's time and interest in the solution. We always look forward to additional conversations and follow-up at your convenience, of course. And today we know we'll be doing a remote, and we look forward in the future that Cheryl and I could be on site with you and fill up your whiteboard. So we do. Thank you, and we look forward to it.
Take care.
Anything else, team?